Well, that was inconvenient. I was just getting through the mystery British Army knife yesterday when my tablet ran out of memory, just like I've run out of memory. And it took me the rest of the day to figure out how to delete some old videos to gain the space to finish this one. There you go. Right, so we were on this one. Bit confused about its history. If anybody can tell me whether or not it's pre-World War Two, whether or not it's a naval edition, or neither of the above, I'd love to know. Right, now, before we continue with the lucky dip, I just want to quickly go back to the Higo Nakami, this little Japanese beauty. They're always bandied about as friction folders, but to me it's not a friction folder. Where in there is there any sort of tang creating friction with the handle to lock the blade? There isn't. There isn't. I can see why people call it a friction folder, but at the end of the day, what stops the blade closing is your thumb on the tab. That's all that's holding it open. Friction is squeezing the handle. You can squeeze that handle as much as you like, and it's not going to affect whether or not the blade stays open or closed. I can see why they're called friction folders, but I'm going to be pedantic about this. Higo Nakamis are not friction folders, in my opinion. Right, not many knives left actually. Maybe 6 or 7, something like that. Right, finger in the bag. It's my other little diddy one. A bit nicer than the other. Here's the one you've already seen. This one is also abalone, mother of pearl, but it's got these lovely stainless bolsters. And it's a smidgen larger. Tiny little bit bigger. This one I think is Richards. Richards of Sheffield. It is, yeah. This one's Richards. As far as I know, Richards are still making knives today. Again, I'd say that's carbon rather than stainless. Yeah, that's carbon. Both of these two little diddy ones are carbon steel. And again, it's such a nice little old knife. You know, I'm not going to sharpen it up and use it or anything like that. It's just going to sit in my collection and age disgracefully. Again, I don't know where that came from. And they're not a pair. They don't go together. I think I got them at the same time, but they're not a matching pair, although they're very similar. This one is higher quality than this one. Right. Now who we got? This is my Leatherman Micra. That lives on my keys usually. So as well as having the Victorinox Fieldmaster in my pocket, I've always got this on my keys as well. Whilst I did previously state I'm not a huge fan of multi-tools, as in Leatherman type multi-tools, I do feel that something that small and of such decent build quality and material quality is worthy of a place on my keys. It does have a slight advantage over the Victorinox in that the scissors are far more substantial. What else have we got on it? There's a few things I've never used on this. Nail file, nail cleaner. Yeah, you can probably tell I'm not into those. Medium-sized flathead. There's the main blade. It is a very nice main blade. It's decent steel, and it's so small and thin and so easy to sharpen that it is very slicey. It's good, great slicey little knife. Its diminutive size is made up for by its sliciness. Tweezers, 2D Phillips. And that's a combined cap lifter. Stick it there for you. Cap lifter and tiny little terminal screwdriver. Main reason that's on my keys is because it's not often it happens, but very occasionally I do leave the house in the morning without my Victorinox. It happens maybe once or twice a year. Nothing to worry about, but that's on my keys if I need it. And it's a nice example. It's a nice example. I wouldn't go spending money on big Leathermans, but this little micro, I think I got it in a sale in Millets. Can't remember what it cost. It was in the January sale. It was significantly reduced, so well worth buying. They are very good. Now, last few. I'm pleased I've got this one out. This is the worst knife I've ever owned. Let alone owned, I think it's the worst knife I've ever seen. I knew from the outset that I was taking a big chance with this one, and that it probably wasn't going to end in my favour. I'll show you. Is it a Camillus? Is that really a US issue? Rare as rocking horse shit. Camillus penknife. No, it's not. Not at all. I ordered this online. It was from, I can't remember exactly who it was, but it was one of the big outdoor suppliers who I still use. And to be fair, this was never advertised as the real deal. It was advertised as a, didn't even mention Camillus. I think it was just described as US issue style knife. Look at that bail. Now watch what it does. It's literally made out of tin foil. It's got a Baco foil bail on it. Let's have a look at the main blade. Oh, hang on. There's the main blade sitting up there. There's no notch. Let's check the other side. Oh, there's the notch, hidden behind another tool. If you want to open the main blade on this stupid pile of junk, you have to open the screwdriver cap lifter. Then you can access the notch to open your main blade, which has got more play on it than I've ever seen on an unused knife in my life. Now just look at the finish, look at the build on that. Can you see those great big gaps between the layers? You probably, there you go, see those gaps between the layers? This thing is absolutely horrendous. It's got play in all directions. It's barely held together. I couldn't lever a ring pull off of a beer can without snapping that off, I swear. Let's just attempt to open. There we go, there's the can opener. There's the awl. Exceptional quality, all of it, absolutely wonderful. Now, I'm not that disappointed because it was very cheap, less than a tenner. I knew I wasn't getting a genuine Camillus, and they're really hard to find. I'd love a genuine Camillus. They are. Don't take this as an example of a Camillus. They are brilliant knives. This thing, it's the worst knife I've ever seen in my life. I'm proud to own it, and it has a special place in my collection because it's the worst knife I've ever seen in my life. I don't know if anybody has watched the Humble Trekker channel. I'm a fan of his channel, he's good. He actually put up a video a couple of years ago which said, it was something along the lines of horrendous fake Dutch army knife. So I watched his video and he pulled out this horrendous fake Dutch army knife, and it was one of these. It was exactly this knife, it just didn't have US stamped into it. So I did message him and I said, well, actually, I've just bought exactly the same knife being bandied around as a US issue knife. Yeah, it's awful. It is horrendous, this thing. Absolutely terrible. But it's so terrible, I'm really pleased I've got it. And yeah, it does have its own very special place in my collection. Okay, last few. 1, 2, 3 or 4 to go. The other Ganzo. The one that you saw a video or 2 ago was the same range as this knife, the same model as this knife. It's just that the first one I got had the half serrated blade. So I was impressed with it, you know, although it's Chinese and all the rest of it. I was impressed with it, so I've got myself an example of a straight bladed version. Exactly the same knife. It's a G. Oh, not a G. It's an F. It's an F759M. Green fly. Get out of it. Yeah, they are decent. They are decent. As much as I object to them ethically and all the rest of it, and my displeasure with China at the moment, it's good for the collection. This is a very interesting little one. It's to go on a key ring. It's shaped like a key. Again, it's a Richards, I think. Yeah, Richards Sheffield. Another little Richards. And the nicest thing about this is I can very accurately date it, because set into the handle is a 1945 farthing. Georgie boy on the back. Little, I think that's probably a wren, judging by the way it's depicted with its tail sticking up like that. This little fat belly. I'd say that's probably a wren. But I know for sure that this little key knife is 1945, which of course, end of the war and all that. Very significant year. They're not that rare. If you look on eBay, you can find them. You see them with farthings all the way up to the late 60s, which I think is when farthings were taken out of circulation. So they were making these for a few decades. I think that's really nice. That's one of those special little pieces that you wonder who's had it before, where it's been, what they've done with it, you know. Just like with my old British Army knife with the individual soldier's stamp on it. Makes you think, well, who was he? Where did he go? Where did he take this knife? What did he do with it? So, yeah, I like that kind of thing in a knife. That's a nice one. Boring? No. I was born in 1975, and this is a 1975 Victorinox Champion. I think it was the precursor to what we have today as the Swiss Champ. Back in the 70s, it was the Champion. I've got the original box and receipt for this knife, so I know where it was bought, and I know it was bought in 1975. And it's interesting to look at, just to see how certain features have changed over time. You've got a 3D Phillips there, which you don't see anymore. It's on a square shaft, and it's on the end of the knife. Whereas these days, your 3D Phillips on a Victorinox is on a round shaft, and it's at a T to the handle. This little magnifying glass in plastic, the plastic holder, you don't see that anymore, as far as I'm aware. Anyway, I've not seen that on a modern Victorinox. Scissors don't seem to have changed at all. The spring is different on here. You can see the spring only has one half to it, whereas on the newer ones it's a V-shaped spring, and it's a more effective spring. Unless that one's broken. Aha, that one could be broken. The fish scaler. I've never used a fish scaler in my life. Small blade. Ah, now, yeah, that's something that's always interested me about this knife. Virtually all of the tools are on one side. These days, they tend to balance the tools between the two sides a bit more evenly. But you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 tools on that side. And on this side, you've got the corkscrew, the awl, and a screwdriver. I think they balance them out a bit more these days. That's nice to have because it's from the year I was born. It's a vintage example. It's not quite old enough to have the bail on it. I'd love it if it was a few years older and it had the bail, but then it wouldn't be from the year I was born. So there you go. Pros and cons. That was the last one. Right, so in the future, I think my collection is going to have to go down the route of European traditionals because there are so many of them out there. They're dirt cheap, most of them. And there are so many out there. I really like them. I love their simplicity. I love their everydayness. I love the fact that most of them are considered peasant knives. I'm a peasant and I like knives. So I'm after a fair few more of those. I would like. The closest thing I've got to an American traditional knife is the Buck 110. I would love to expand my collection of American traditionals. I'd love a Stockman. I'd love a doctor's knife. There are lots of American knives out there that I like, but the affordable ones are all made by what are they called? Rough Rider. Heine Haynes do them. If you go on Heine Haynes and look at the Rough Rider range, there are some beautiful knives with some really interesting handle materials and lots of lovely traditional Western American designs. But they're one of those companies I don't really want to support. They're Chinese for a start, and it's a very cynically established company because although they're nothing, as far as I can tell, nothing to do with the USA whatsoever, they are a purely Chinese company. They've gone for all this marketing where they put a cowboy on the box and they call it a Rough Rider and it's all American style knives. To me, that's quite a predatory way of doing business. I think I'd rather save my money and spend my money on a case or something like that. You know, case knives, buck knives. Buy the real deal, not these Heine Haynes knockoffs. What else do I want? I want a kukri. I haven't got a kukri. I'd like a real Spyderco as opposed to the Ganzos, which are lovely. Now, if a knockoff copy can be that good, I'd love to know how good a real Spyderco is. So I'd like to get myself a Spyderco, maybe a Delica, something like that. What else would I like? Oh, a Barlow. I haven't got a Barlow. I'd like to have a Barlow in the collection. So there's plenty of places for it to go. That was 40 odd knives, and there's still plenty of scope to collect more. I hope you enjoyed watching that. I hope I didn't talk too much utter nonsense at you. Like I said, I love watching knife videos. I love seeing other people's collections. So I hope that's given you some ideas for knives that you might want to look for. And if you want to see any of those knives in a little bit more detail, let me know and I will do. Obviously as a collection video, a collection series that had to be quite brief. But if there's anything there that particularly caught your attention and you'd like to see it again, tell me and I'll do it. Right, everybody stay safe. See you later.